Hey, it's Stacey and I'm so excited to show you how to make my super handy fabric cord organizers. I've actually been wanting to do this tutorial for a while, so I can't wait to share it with you. To make a fabric cord organizer, you're going to need 2 pieces of fabric at 2.5 inches by 3.5 inches, and I like to use quilting cotton for this project. Plus you're going to need 2 pieces at 2 inches by 3 inches of single-sided fusible interfacing, and I like to use Palon Shapeflex SF101. You'll also need 1 snap set and a sewing machine, point turner, pins, rotary cutter, ruler and mat. The finished size is approximately 1.5 inches by 2 inches, and that's when it's snapped shut. So let's take both of our pieces of fabric and we're going to place them right sides down. So that means that the wrong side is facing us, and if I just turn it over here you can see that this is the right side facing down. Then I'm going to take my interfacing, and you can make these any size you'd like. Just make sure that the interfacing is cut 1/2 inch smaller than your fabric. So what I'm going to do with my interfacing is there's a bumpy side which has the glue. I'm going to make sure that that's facing down onto my wrong side of my fabric, and I'm going to place it in the center so that there's about 1/4 inch allowance around the whole edge. Now it doesn't have to be perfect, just do it by eye, and then I'll do exactly the same for the second piece, making sure that rough and bumpy side is facing down. Just checking that it's in the center just roughly by eye, and then I will give those a nice firm press so they're going to stay in place. So the heat melts the glue, adhesing it to the fabric. Okay, I'm just going to turn them over and give them a press on the other side just to make sure it is nice and secure. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take both of my pieces of fabric, face them right sides together. I'm going to line up all 4 edges, making sure the corners are all lined up nicely, and when they are, I'm just going to pop a pin in right in the center, holding it in place. So now what we're going to do is sew around 3 of our sides, leaving an opening at the end. So starting at this edge and then coming around and sewing on 3 of the sides, and then at the beginning and the end I will do a back stitch just so it's nice and secure for when we turn it right sides out. I'm using my 1/4 inch foot, so just use whatever you need to use as your guide to get a 1/4 inch seam allowance. I'm stitching at stitch length 2 and I'm using glide thread. So just starting at the very edge there, going forward a few stitches and then back. And then I'm doing my best guess as to where I'm about 1/4 inch away from that edge, making sure my needle's down, lifting my foot up and turning, and then I'll carry on down to that next corner. Coming right down to that edge and then doing a back stitch, and then cutting my thread. So I did just remove my pin and give it a quick press so it was sitting nice and flat. Now what I'm going to do is just cut the corners off to remove the bulk, but just be extra careful not to cut those stitches. Now on the sides where we didn't close it off, you can cut it to reduce the bulk, but you can't go right across. We don't want to cut those stitches, so just do that on more of an angle. Okay, and then what we're going to do is find our opening, open it up between the 2 fabrics. I'm going to put 2 fingers in and grab the end here with my 2 fingers and grab a hold of it, and then hold on to it while I pull the rest of the fabric through, turning it right sides out, trying to get it into the correct shape, a rectangle. Then I'm going to take my point turner and I'm just going to get those corners sitting really nicely with my point turner. Now if you don't have a point turner, you could use something with a blunt end like a chopstick or the blunt end of a pencil, but just be careful. Even with a point turner you can push too hard and end up going through the fabric, and we don't want that. And then I will just run it along these edges, making sure they're also sitting nicely. We can also roll them out to make sure that they're sitting nicely, What we want to happen is when we're pressing it, we want to be able to only see the fabric on each side, and that's how we know that it is sitting nicely and those edges are all rolled out. So then let's give that a press. And I'll turn it over and press it on the other side. Just a bit of steam. And then what I'm going to do is come to my opening and I'm going to fold that in, so I've got about 1/4 of an inch of fabric folded in there. It's a little bit fiddly. And the idea is to make it look like the opening was never there. So just take your time and get it sitting really nicely. And then once you've got it so you're happy with it, let's give that a press to keep it in place. Okay, and then what I will do is just pop a pin in, keeping it exactly how I want it to be when we go around sewing our top stitch. I just think it's a little bit easier to start our top stitch on this side here, and then we'll come around to the side that we're closing. Now I'm using my fancy foot, which gives me a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance, but just use whatever guide on your foot or your foot plate that you need to use to get a 1/8 of an inch seam allowance. Remember, it does need to be smaller than our 1/4 inch because we need to be able to close our opening. So I'm just going to start on that side, and I'm not going to do a back stitch because I'll come back over it when I get to that point. So I'll just start stitching, and then I'm going to do my best guess again at stopping at about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. Make sure my needle's down and turn. I'm a bit off, so actually I'm going to do one more stitch. Okay, and now I'm going to come along and close up my opening. And then I'm just going to come right back to where I started and go over the top and then do a back stitch. Trim my thread and then trim any loose threads that you've got as close as you can to the stitches without cutting them. And then let's put our little snap set on that. So I've got my cam set here, and that's what we'll use as our snap closure. And this all came as a set because you do need the pliers and the awl. And I'll put a link in the description below if you don't have one yet. They're a great investment. So what we're going to do is take our fabric and we're going to measure 1/2 inch from the edge of the fabric up and in the center. So it's 2 inches wide. So if I place my ruler on top, you can see it's 2 inches wide, and I'll just find the 1/2 inch mark. And then I'm just going to place a little dot there so I know where it is. So we're 1/2 inch away from the edge and we're in the center, which is 1 inch. Then what I'm going to do is fold it in half. Now you'd fold it in half with the fabric that you'd like showing. And I'm going to have my little flower fabric showing. And then I'm going to line up these bottom edges so it's perfectly in half. And when I'm happy that it is in half, I'm going to hold it firmly. I'm going to get my awl and I'm going to poke a hole through all the layers. And I'm going to be careful that I'm not accidentally poking myself because that would hurt. So please be careful. And now I've got a hole on both sides that's going to be perfectly lined up. Then I'll take one of my caps and pop it in through the top, remembering my flowers is going to be on the top. And then I'll take one of these bottom pieces. It's either a female or a male. Place whichever one it is on here. It doesn't matter which order you do this. Then I'll just get my pliers and push it down, and you'll feel like you'll hear a snap or a sound, but you won't because they are just plastic. It just kind of mushes it into place. Then I'll turn it around and I'll place my cap in again from the top on the right side of the fabric, or the fabric rather that you want to be on the outer side of your little holder. See how I'm going to send my flower fabric? Then on the inside, So depending on whether you've used a male or a female, you do need to make sure they are sitting in the right order. And what you can do is just place it on top and make sure that it fits there. And if you applied a little pressure, it would clip in. Don't apply pressure because it does then clip in and it's a little bit tricky to come out again. But just double check that you are using a male and a female. Then take your pliers again, apply some pressure, and then it's done, just like that. And then we can snap it shut and open it again. How cute and easy is that? If you've liked this video, please make sure you hit the like button. It just means that the algorithm will share it with more people and I'd really appreciate it. Now don't forget, you can make your fabric cord organizers any size you like. Just make sure the interfacing is a 1/2 inch smaller than your fabric, just so it's not so bulky when we're sewing it together. Now, when I say you can make them any size you like, I made mine in mini, small, and medium. And that basically covered any cord that I'd want to use them to organize. I use them for my phone cables, earbuds, my ironing cord, any cord you've got, they're useful for. For more information, I'll put a link below. And if you'd like to do another project with snaps, you might like to check out my snap pouch project. I'll see you in the next video.